Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, Oakland men's basketball game reviews. I am your host, Giovanni Mosheri. Before we get started, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the GioMoShow for weekly coverage of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. And for this weekend, Oakland started its full-time HoriZone League play with 2 home games against number 1 Milwaukee and, I believe at the time, number 7, Robert Morris. Kind of two sides of a somewhat similar coin here. With a win against Milwaukee and a loss against Robert Morris. And joining me today, back from the HoriZone Roundtable to help me break it all down, is the Oakland beat writer, Griffin Beers. Griffin, how you doing? And welcome back.
Good to be back. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, for sure. And if you guys want to find more of Griffin Beers, then you can find his work at HoriZoneRoundtable.com. And you can follow him on Twitter at Griffin_Beers2. So, Griffin, like I mentioned before, kind of two sides of what felt like a similar coin. We'll start with Oakland's win against Milwaukee. We'll give the good news first. That one, it was a surprisingly strong defensive effort from Oakland. It was just simply shocking to hold the number 1 team in Milwaukee to 49 points. I got to imagine that's the biggest headline, 49 points.
Yeah, and that's a team that is known for a high-powered offense, too. It's not like they're good, built on their defense or whatever. No, that's a team that had, I believe, 4 guys averaging 13 or more points going into the game. They have a lot of guys that could score, and Oakland just did not let them breathe, basically. I mean, it was a complete defensive effort throughout, and it was really fun to watch, and it was a really good way to kind of get back into conference play and get yourself feeling good, getting a big win at home.
For sure, and especially just given the traveling schedule that they had, for Michigan State, then Cleveland State, Hawaii immediately, and they didn't even get the break after coming back from Hawaii because they had Arkansas the Monday prior. So all that going into a game against the predicted number 1 team, or at least co-number 1 team in the league against Milwaukee, I was floored with how that went. And to kind of dig into a little more specifics of the game, we chit-chatted about it on the way out of the arena, but both the Jones brothers had quite a good performance, not only this game, but this weekend. But specific for this game, what'd you think of both Jalen and Isaiah Jones?
Yeah, I'll start with Jalen because he's kind of been almost a pulverizing figure, it seems like, throughout the fan base. His game is just... It's tough to really judge how he is going to be in his whole career out in Oakland when he's playing guys that are, really bigger than him and more athletic than him. And I think we saw a lot of that, especially, when they go play Arkansas, go play Illinois. He's fearless, and he's going to go to the basket and he's going to play his game, and that's not going to look, like it's going to have a high success rate when he's playing guys that are just athletically superior to him. But I think we saw, a first glance of what to expect more of this week because he was getting to the rim. He was making plays for others. He was making shots. And that was really exciting to watch from him. And then Isaiah, it seems like Isaiah is really starting to get back to where he was before he got hurt. I think this is kind of the player that Oakland expected to have throughout the whole season. And his first couple of games back, obviously, from a major injury, he's coming back. It's going to take some time to get acclimated, but I think you're seeing what he can do. He's an elite offensive rebounder. He's an elite defender. And with the size that Oakland has, he's going to be guarded by some smaller guys, which is going to open up opportunities for him to get to the rim. So it was definitely a good showing for both of those guys.
Yeah, and especially just down in the HoriZone, it's more of an even matchup when it comes to size. And I even I went back, I got my notes here from the game that I was taking notes live in the arena. It was a few minutes into the first half. I said, "Why does Jalen Jones got to be Superman at the rim?" And then not 3 lines later, I go, Superman Jones, Oakland with the lead. so I mean, when he gets that first step, the speed that he can play with now to be able to break away and get to the rim first, that makes a huge difference compared to, some of the higher talent that they faced in the offseason, like you were mentioning.
For sure.
And taking a look at the box score here, just to give some context of the numbers for you guys. Like, not only can Jalen Jones like get to the rim and distribute well, like he had 14 points with 7 rebounds and made 2 of Oakland's 3-point attempts. And obviously, we might get to the 3-point side of things in a little bit. But in addition, Isaiah Jones, 11 points, 5 rebounds. All 5 of them were offensive rebounds. And made all 5 of his free throws, 2 assists, 2 steals. Like, it just kind of comes almost at random, but the box score is going to be occupied when it comes to how Isaiah plays.
Yeah, we saw that last year. If he wasn't scoring, he was rebounding, and he was, he'd end up with an assist or 2 here every game, a steal or 2 every game. It's a really consistent effort from him, and it's nice to see him being able to score the ball a little bit too.
Yeah, but now I want to get to a little bit of the bad news. But we got a piece of good news before we end the discussion of this game. But 3 of 17 from 3. Like, I can't. Am I supposed to be okay with this? I can't feel okay with it. Jalen Jones making 2, like I said, 2 out of 3 made 3-pointers out of 17 attempts. Like, we can't survive like this. We can't eat like this for the rest of the season, right?
No, it's gonna have to improve a little bit. I think. Malcolm's performance in Hawaii, I think the first couple games coming out of that, he was going to have some heavy attention on him, and I think we saw that, and he struggled a little bit getting loose in both of these games. I think he'll settle into his role eventually, and he's going to be probably not what we saw in Hawaii, averaging 20-something points a game, but he's also not going to be this 20-something% 3-point shooter. I think he'll settle into a nice consistent role. But yeah, I mean, the rest of the guys, I'm not. It might be hard to make shots consistently, but what you're looking for is just enough. Because luckily for Oakland, they don't have to be an elite 3-point shooting team with the front court they have. It just has to be enough, and I think that's why Jalen Jones making a 3 or 2 every game, like, that's going to be important. Because people aren't going to leave him to go double Allen and Baru, right? They're going to have to stay out on him, and that's going to give them space to work in there. So it just has to be enough for Oakland.
And a piece of the good news that I was mentioning before is, like, not only was Oakland able to hold Milwaukee to 49 points, but they were able to do it without fouling very, very much. Milwaukee they finished the game with only 7 free throw attempts, making just 4 of them. Meanwhile, Oakland, 24 attempts, making 16 of them. So the disparity in the free throwing kind of supplementing the 3-point shooting. And I mean, Milwaukee didn't shoot well from 3 either, so that kind of balanced out on its own. But being able to have that kind of defense without fouling was huge.
Yeah, and that's the 2 pillars of the zone defense that can't be as talked about. We don't give up the 3, and we don't foul. And that's exactly, the Milwaukee game was just a perfect, encapsulation of what he wants the defense to be. And it's frustrating for other teams to go against it sometimes. But, yeah, it was just a good performance.
So overall, Oakland would defeat the Milwaukee Panthers 65-49. And in between that game and the next one they would play on Saturday, Oakland women's basketball would go 4-0 in the league, beating Cleveland State. So it was 2 nights in a row where Oakland basketball defeated the number 1 team in the conference, but it would also be a trend of a bit of a disappointment in their following game that weekend. We'll keep our discussion to men's basketball, but Saturday's performance against Robert Morris would not be a repeat of victory. 71-79 loss to the Robert Morris Colonials. Oakland had the lead in this one. Oakland had a chance to get it. They had a 10-point lead to begin the second half, and it would go the other way, where Robert Morris would lead by 10 and continue to win it. Griff, what happened?
Yeah, the middle of that second half was really rough to watch. The offensively, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think it was something like there were 2 stretches of 4+ minutes where they didn't score. I think there was a 9-minute stretch of 3 points, and it was not a good thing to watch, especially, and it was a little surprising because that first half they were rolling, and they were getting whatever shot they wanted, and then they come out first play of the second half, they get a wide open dunk for Baru, they take that 9 or 10 point lead, And then for a couple minutes, it was, they were sustaining that, and then they just couldn't score. And for whatever reason, it was not happening, and that made a little bit of a run late to try to get back into it. But yeah, that middle stretch of the second half was killer, and unfortunately, it's something that we've seen before. That game, it reminded me a lot of that Eastern Michigan game earlier in the season, where you have that 8 point lead at halftime, and then in the middle of the second half, you just go through a huge lull, and at the end of the game, you try to come back, but it's just not enough. And so they're going to have to figure out how to cut down those droughts in the future.
Yeah, I could tell just visually when I was watching it that it just looked like they ran out of gas at some point during the second half. But going to the first half, I was looking. OU was really out rebounding Robert Morris. They were like 21 to 15 in the rebounding at halftime. They had 11 offensive rebounds, so Robert Morris is 5. And then with a dunk by Baru and a Christie 3 to start the second half, they were up by 10, 44 to 34, and it's just couldn't be sustained, and it was frustrating to watch. We would learn a little bit later that there was the flu was kind of going around the team as well, and it's you're playing the game. You got the flu or not, you still got to play. It wasn't enough, but like you kind of see the context of like how they ran out of gas. But yeah, it was tough to watch, tough to see.
Yeah, and it was hard. I think Allen got a little bit of an injury towards the end. I
Yeah.
think he was in for most of the stretch where the offense was really struggling, so it's not an excuse, but obviously down the stretch you like to have him for those easy baskets. DQ is very limited with the flu, but they were still enough out there, and when you have a 10-point lead, especially, there was still enough out there to close that game out. So
Yeah, and Robert Morris, comparing it to the game against Milwaukee, a lot more free throws, a lot more fouls given up by Oakland. They would have 26 attempts at the line, making 22 of them, which was huge. And then not many attempts, but efficient from 3. There were 7 of 5, near 50% from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, Oakland, would chuck up 33 shots from beyond the arc, make 8 of them. It was just a lot. It felt like Robert Morris was in a lot more control of it when it came to how they were shooting, getting to the line, and Cam Woods would end with 29 points. Yeah, not fun. Not a fun way to cap off the weekend, but ultimately Oakland would split it, but it kind of kicks them down, I believe, 8th place in the HoriZone League standings at it would be 2 and 3. Yikes.
yeah, and 2 and 3 is it's whatever so far, but it's especially tough because now you lost a home game that you probably should have won up 10 in the second half, and now you're making what is probably historically the hardest trip in the league to Wright State and Northern Kentucky, where you're going to have to beat at least one of them to stay on the hunt for that ultimate goal of the top 4. And if you have any hope of a league championship left, you're probably going to have to go and sweep that road trip, which is going to be tough. But once you get through this week, if they can get out of there with a win or two, there is some daylight in the schedule, right? Oakland's going to be through 7 games, and they're going to have 0 games against the bottom 3 teams in the league, which means 6 of those final 13 are going to be against the bottom 3 in the league. So if you got to get through this weekend, you got to put everything you have into this weekend, and then hopefully you can come back home and start racking up some wins. But yeah, that loss makes this upcoming week a pretty big one.
And that upcoming week will be a road trip to Wright State and Northern Kentucky, as Griffin mentioned. Currently, Wright State, that will be Thursday this week. That was last week. They are currently 2 and 3 in the league, tied with Oakland in the league record. But Northern Kentucky, up with that crowded top part of the league, they are 4 and 1, one of 3 teams that are 4 and 1 in league. So no doubt going to be a tough assignment. But that's the one that's given, and Oakland's going to have to pass a test if they want a good grade by the end of the season to get that top 4 spot in the HoriZone League seeding come tournament time. So that's going to wrap it up for us here on the GioMoShow. Oakland men's basketball game reviews. Once again, we thank Griffin Beers from the HoriZone Roundtable for joining us once again, and it may not be the last time, everybody. So get used to a little bit of Griffin here on the Joe Mo Show. Griff, once again, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.